Good morning, student friends. Welcome back you for the chapter surface chemistry. Under surface chemistry, we are at the end of the chapter colloids. So yesterday, in the last session, we studied the properties of colloids. There I have given the three important property. One is the kinetic property, optical property, and electrical property. So I'll briefly repeat what I covered in the last session. I have taken the Brownian movement is a kinetic property. So these colloidal particles, they have got the property of movement in a zigzag manner. So this zigzag and continuous movement of the colloidal particles in the dispersion medium is called Brownian movement, because this movement was observed by Brownian. It's called the Brownian movement. I told you this is a kinetic property. How these colloidal particles gain the kinetic energy, I discussed now. These molecules of the dispersion have constant collision with the colloidal particles. Thereby colloidal particles gain energy and start moving in a zigzag manner. And we, this is called the Brownian movement. So this we discussed in the last session. And also we discussed, the optical property. It is called Tyndall effect. Optical property means, the process in which the colloidal particles have got the property of scattering the light rays from the surface of the particle. So this property, scattering property, is not shown by true solution. I have shown the diagram, So I have taken one is the true solution I have taken, one is the colloidal solution I have taken. The light is passed through these two solution. So the path of the light rays is not visible in the true solution, but the path of the light rays is visible in the colloidal solution. So these colloidal particles are sufficiently big enough, they could be able to scatter the light rays, and this scattering property was conducted in the form of the Tyndall effect. So this is the colloidal dispersion is taken. You will get the source. So we use the slits are used to get a convergent beam of light rays is passed through the colloidal suspension. So even in dark room, you can see the bright Tyndall cone is formed. Or with the ultra microscope, you can observe the bright Tyndall cone. This is the scattering property. So the colloidal particles have the property of scattering the light rays from the surface of the particle. I gave the example yesterday. So the sky appears blue. Why the sky appears blue? Because of the scattering property. In the environment, large number of colloidal particles, sunlight falls on these particles, scatter the light rays, and scattering light rays has got the wavelength in the visible region of blue color. The sky appears blue. So best example for the optical property of the colloids. And most interestingly, I have taken now the electrical property of the colloid. So electrical property means, I told you, I have taken the colloidal dispersion in a U tube fitted with two electrodes, and we pass the electric current. And three observations I discussed yesterday. All the colloidal particles have a particular solve. They move towards only one of the electrode. Unlike electrolyte, in the electrolyte, positive ions move toward the negative plate, negative ions move toward the positive plate. In this colloidal dispersion, all the particles have a particular solve. So found to move towards only, this is the one of the electrode. Either they move towards the anode, all the particles they move towards cathode. If they move towards anode, we call it the anophoresis. Or they move towards cathode, is called the cataphoresis. This is called electrophoresis. So the movement of the colloidal particles in the electric field, so towards one of the electrode is called the electrophoresis. After reaching these electrodes, these colloidal particles lose their charges and appear as products. We discussed. And here, so this I told you, based on this we are going to design, we are going to discover what are the charges carried by the number of colloidal dispersion. I have given the number of examples also I have given, number of examples I have given. So some of the example I have given for positive charged salt, negative charged salt. So these are the example. You have to remember, they are important colloidal system where you are supposed to know the charges. Without knowing the charge, you cannot answer the questions in the entrance examination. So based on the movement of these colloidal particles in the electric field, so we identify the charges on the positive charge salt. Again, hemoglobin in blood is a positively charged salt. So negative charge salts, all the examples I have given. So these are the charges, and by this electrophoresis, we came to know the colloidal particles they carry the charges, and they carry only one type of charges, not unlike electrolytes. So please try to understand. Suppose you take sodium chloride, you pass electric current. Now Na plus ion move towards the negative plate, Cl minus ion move towards the positive plate. But here, what happens in the colloidal dispersion? All the particles have a particular solve, move towards only one of the electrode. That means they carry only one type of charges. Then you have to see. So what is the origin of the charge? Today I will start this. What is the origin of the charges on the colloidal particles? How the colloidal particles will get the charges? We know so the colloidal particles are charged particles. They migrate in the electric field towards the opposite charge electrode. How do these colloidal particles gain the charges? So these colloidal particles gain the charges by two ways. One is the preferential absorption of ions from the solution. Preferential absorption of ions from the solution, or by ionization of surface group. So by these two processes, so the colloidal particles gain the charges. I will explain one by one with suitable examples. So I will take ferric hydroxide salt. So this is a positive charged salt. This moved towards negative plate. How this ferric hydroxide has got a positive charge? So the ferric hydroxide. So because we are going to use ferric chloride in the dispersion medium, Fe3 plus ion. So this is Fe. So preferential absorption, FeOH. Now this is the common ion preferentially absorbs Fe3 plus ion. Thereby it develops a positive charged particle. Look at this is the ferric hydroxide. So this is the ferric hydroxide is a particle or is a molecule. So on the surface of it, adsorption takes place. It adsorbs the common Fe3 plus ion, Fe3 plus ions are adsorbed thereby. So ferric hydroxide is positively charged. How the colloidal particles gain the charges? They gain the charges by preferential adsorption of common ions present in the dispersion medium. I will give other example. Say I will take arsenious sulfide. I have taken salt. So this is negatively charged. How it becomes negative arsenious sulfide? Because we are going to use H2S in the dispersion medium. But S2 minus ion. Now this is a common S and S, not a common ion. Arsenious sulfide. This arsenious sulfide adsorbs the common ion S2 minus ions. Look at this is arsenious sulfide. Adsorbs at the surface with S2 minus ion. So preferential adsorption, thereby it develops a negative charge. I give you a large number of examples. So these colloidal particles gain the charges by preferential adsorption of common ions. So preferential adsorption of common ions present in the dispersion medium. So they absorb the common ions and thereby the colloidal particle gain the charges. This is one way in which the colloidal particles attain the charges. Another is by surface ionization. I told yesterday, soaps and detergents, they are negatively charged. Why they are negatively charged means soap, I told you soap is a sodium salts of fatty acid, long chain monocarboxylic acid, CH2, COO, Na. So this undergoes ionization on COO minus, Na plus is washed away by the water, but CO negative charge. Soaps are, because of the ionization, surface ionization, soaps are negatively charged. So these, these colloidal particles gain the charges by preferential adsorption of common ions present in the dispersion medium, or by surface ionization, they will get the charges. Are you okay, students? By these two methods, the colloidal particles gain the charges. One more, simple, what is a zeta? You have to explain what is a zeta potential. So this is called the potential develops due to electrical double layer. So what is the electrical double layer? How it develops? Let's say I take the simple example of AgI. I have to prepare AgI salt. That is, I will take AgNO3. I will put excess of sodium. I will take excess of sodium iodide. AgI is formed. AgI, since I use the excess of NaI, so I minus ions in the dispersion medium. Not common I adsorbs. AgI adsorbs I minus ion. Now negatively charged silver iodide salt is formed. It can also form a positive charge. How it can get a positive charge? Suppose if you use the excess of AgNO3, now use NaI, the same AgI is formed. But in the dispersion medium, if you use the excess of ion, so Ag plus ions will be there. Now Ag plus adsorbs, then it becomes a positive charge. So this particular salt can have a negative charge or a positive charge, depending upon the ions available in the dispersion medium. Here the condition of taking excess of sodium iodide, I minus ion present in excess in the dispersion medium, by preferential adsorption, I adsorbs, AgI adsorb I minus ion, the silver iodide salt particle is formed. This is negatively charged. That is the AgI is a particle. By preferential adsorption, it adsorbs the I minus ion. So this is called as the fixed layer is formed. So this fixed layer. So silver iodide by preferential adsorption adsorbs the I minus ion. So this is a fixed layer. So this I minus ion in the dispersion medium, Na plus ions are there. So this I minus ion attracts Na plus ion. When the Na plus ion come towards the, so this fixed layer, Na plus ion attracts the I minus ion. So this, so wherever I minus ion, Na plus ion attracts. So this is a layer of positive charges inside a layer of negative charges. We call the electrical double layer. Because of this electrical double layer, a small amount of potential is current. A small amount of current is developed. That is called the zeta potential. That is a particle, silver iodide, absorbs I minus ion. So this is a fixed layer. And this I minus ion absorbs Na plus ion from the dispersion medium. So this we call it the mobile layer. So the potential developed between the fixed layer and the mobile layer due to electrical double layer, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, due to electrical double layer, a potential is a small amount of current is developed. That is called the zeta potential. AgI, preferential absorption absorbs I minus ion. So this layer we call it is a fixed layer. This is a solid particle. But in the dispersion medium, so the Na plus ion is there. So this I minus ion attracts Na plus ion. I minus attracts Na plus ion. There is one more layer, so of positive charges. This is called the mobile layer. This is negative, positive. The electrical double layer, because the friction, positive, negative, a small current is developed. That is called the zeta potential. How much current is developed we can measure by the electrophoresis experiment. But this is beyond the scope of our NCERT syllabus. NCERT has not put this zeta potential, but this has been appearing in your national competitive examination. Please understand the concept of zeta potential. A small amount of current develops between because of the electrical double layer between the fixed layer and the mobile layer. So this kernel particle is a fixed layer. From the dispersion medium, the negative charge attracts the positive charges. There is electrical double layer, minus plus, minus plus, minus plus. That causes a friction and a small amount of current is developed, is called the zeta potential. Okay. I go to one more important concept, the coagulation of the colloids, or called the flocculation, coagulation of the colloids. The colloidal particles are charged particles. So they carry particular charge. They may have a positive charge or they may have a negative charge. So how to bring about the coagulation? I want to remove the charges on the colloidal particle, coagulation. So coagulation of the colloids can be done by different methods. By electrophoresis. Electrophoresis means you put the salt in a U tube, fix two metal electrodes, pass the electric current. Ions move towards the opposite electrodes, lose their charges and appear as products. So coagulation takes place. So the charges and the colloidal particles can be removed by electrophoresis, pass the electric current, because they carry only one type of charges. If they contain negative charge, they move towards the positive plate. So lose their charges and gets coagulated. So these coagulation can be done by electrophoresis. By boiling also we can remove the charges, because this is not a permanent charge. Only by physical absorption the charges will be there on the colloidal particle. Suppose you boil, so the molecule, there is the molecules of the dispersion medium and the colloidal particles, they move with a larger velocity. So these molecules of the dispersion medium, they collide with the colloidal particle and they can take away the charges, and thereby also we can remove the charges and the coagulation occurs by heating. So the velocity will increases. So the molecules of the dispersion will move at a greater speed. They collide the colloidal particles. This the impact will take away the charges, and thereby so the charges can be removed and coagulation can be made, and that is the coagulation can also be done by boiling. Some simple method we can remove the charges on the colloidal particle. One more method is by mixing oppositely charged salts. By mixing, suppose I will take the arsenious sulfide salt. So this is As2S3 arsenious sulfide. It consisting of negative charged particle. It consisting of only negative charged particle. Suppose I will take ferric hydroxide salt. So this is ferric hydroxide salt. It contains only the positive charged particles, colloidal particles which are in positive form. Suppose mix these two in equal form. What happens? So these positive charges neutralize the negative charges. The coagulation occurs by mixing the salts of opposite charges. So you can also bring about the coagulation, because they carry only one type of charges. So one is negative charge and the positive charge. When mixed together in equal volume, charges will get neutralized, and the coagulation occurs by mixing the equal volume of two oppositely charged salts. Most important study is by addition of an electrolyte. By addition of an electrolyte, we can bring about the coagulation. Suppose I will take the arsenious sulfide salt. Let us say for this, I will put sodium chloride, means Na plus Cl minus 1. How does the coagulation takes place? Right, students, please think and tell me. I have taken arsenic sulfide salt, is a negative charged particle, I am putting sodium chloride. If they are negative charge, put Na plus ions of the electrolyte. So, neutralizes charges on the colloidal particle, the salt will be get coagulated, they become negative charges because electrolyte contains both positive and negative. So, the positive ion of the electrolyte, so neutralizes the negative charges and brings about the coagulation. Suppose I take ferric hydroxide, a positive charge, again I will put this also sodium chloride, this is Na plus and Cl minus ion. Here what happens? Note Cl minus ions of the electrolyte. So, brings about they remove the charges, the positive charges and salt will be gets coagulated. See that is so by the addition of an electrolyte, the salt can be coagulated because the electrolyte furnishes both positive and negative ions, but colloids have got only one type of charges. So, these electrolytes with the opposite charge will be used for the coagulation and salt will be get coagulated. So, this what is the capacity of this electrolyte to bring about the coagulation? With these electrolytes, so brings about the coagulation. Oppositely charged ions brings about the coagulation of the salt particle. So, what is the power of these electrolyte to bring about the coagulation is expressed in terms of Hardy, what is called the Hardy-Scheele rule. What this Hardy-Scheele rule says is important for your so the board examination also and also important for competitive examination. I will explain this Hardy-Scheele rule. So, as I told you here, positive ion of the electrolyte, so brings about the coagulation of negative salt particle. So, negative ion brings about the positive salt particle. So, the precipitating power of an ion increases with increase in the magnitude of the charge of the ion. So, the precipitating power of an ion on the opposite charged salt particle increases with increase in the valency or the increase in the magnitude of the charge on the colloids. I will give the examples, Hardy-Scheele rule. So, I have taken arsenic sulfide salt as a negative salt. Now, the positive ions brings about the coagulation. Look at this, I given Al3 plus has got more power for coagulation than 2 plus than Na plus. The coagulating power of an ion of opposite charge increases with increase in the valency of the ion or increases with increase in the magnitude of the charge in the ion. Therefore, aluminum has more coagulating power than barium 2 plus than Na plus. This is Hardy-Scheele rule. The precipitating power of an ion of an electrolyte increases with increase in the valency of the ion or magnitude of charge on the ion. So, take arsenic sulfide, a negative salt, positive ions brings about the coagulation. But Al3 plus is more effective, easily brings about the coagulation because more valency than 2 plus than Na minus. Suppose I will take the ferric hydroxide, I will take a positive salt. If a positive salt, negative ions brings about the coagulation. Look at the coagulation property. This ferrocyanide ion 4 minus ion is more effective than 3 minus ion phosphate ion, then SO4 2 minus ion, then the Cl minus ion. That is the coagulating power of an ion on the colloidal particles of opposite charge increases with increase in the valency of the ion or increase with increase in the magnitude of the charge in the ion. I have taken the positive salt. So, this negative ions brings about the coagulation. Notice the ferrocyanide has got 4 negative charges, more effective coagulating than 3 minus, than 2 minus, than unit negative charge. So, this is the Hardy-Scheele rule. So, the electrolyte ions, you have got the power for coagulation. What is the power of coagulation? The power of coagulation of an ion on the colloidal particles of opposite charge increases with increase in the valency of the ion. I take the example of arsenic sulfide salt, negative salt, the positive ions brings about the coagulation. Where higher the charge, higher is the coagulation. Lesser the charge, lesser is the power of the coagulation. I have taken the ferric hydroxide salt is a positive salt. Negative ion bring about the coagulation. The ferrocyanide ion, 4 minus ion, is more effective coagulation than the Cl minus ion. So, the coagulated, this is the Hardy is called the Hardy-Scheele rule, which states that the coagulating power of an ion on the colloidal particles of opposite charge increases with increase in the valency of the ion. Higher the charge, higher is the coagulation property. Lesser the charge, lesser is the power of the coagulation of the colloidal particle. So, this is the power of an ion to bring about the coagulation is expressed in terms of a flocculation value. Now, this is all application of, you have to apply your mind in the entrance examination. So, this is the coagulative, as you know, higher the charge, higher is the power of coagulation. That is expressed in terms of the flocculation value. What is the flocculation value is defined as the minimum concentration of an electrolyte. Remember, I am going to express the concentration in millimoles. The minimum concentration of electrolyte that must be added to 1 dm cube of colloidal dispersion to cause complete coagulation is called the flocculation value. I have taken the 1 dm cube of salt. I want to bring about the complete coagulation. What is the minimum concentration of ion or electrolyte should be added is called as the flocculation value. The minimum concentration. So this concentration is expressed in terms of millimoles per liter. So that must be added to 1 dm cube of the colloidal solution to bring about the complete coagulation is called the flocculation value. Students, can you follow the definition? I have taken the 1 dm cube of the salt. So to complete coagulation, what is the minimum amount of electrolyte that should be added? That minimum amount is expressed in millimoles. Minimum concentration of an electrolyte in millimoles per dm cube that must be added to 1 dm cube of colloidal solution to bring about the complete coagulation is called the flocculation value. I defined. Now we have to apply. I go to the application of this concept. I will give one table. Look at this table I have given. Observe this very carefully. All these values I have given. But I have taken the arsenious sulfide salt. As though it is a negatively charged. I am adding the electrolyte. So here the positive ions, I have taken the sodium chloride, potassium chloride. Electrolytes can be added to bring about the coagulation. Negative salt, I take positive ion. So the positive ion can bring about the coagulation. You measure the flocculation value. Look here. Na plus ion requires 52 millimoles to bring about the coagulation. Like this potassium, see, aluminum Al3 plus has got 0.093 millimoles. What is the data indicates? That is if you want to express the coagulation property in terms of number, this number is number of in millimoles. That means the higher the flocculation, so lesser the flocculation value, greater is the power of the coagulation. So this is the higher the flocculation value, lesser will be the power of coagulation. And if you want to bring out the coagulation by Na plus ion, 52 millimoles are required. The same coagulation if you use Al3 plus only 0.093 millimoles are required. In the examination, they give the flocculation value. You have to say which is a good precipitating agent or coagulating agent. That is, you propose in given here. So, coagulating power is inversely proportional to flocculation value. Lesser the flocculation value, greater the power of the coagulation. Or greater the flocculation value, lesser will be the power of coagulation. That is what the Hardesty rules. The coagulation power depends upon the magnitude of the charge. So, this has got only Na plus 1 charge. Al3 plus has 3 plus. So, to coagulate this one, if you want to coagulate a salt, so this has got a more charge, a small amount can bring about the coagulation. If you want to put Na plus, more amount is required for the coagulation. That is expressed in terms of the flocculation value. The values will be given to you. You can look at lesser the flocculation value, greater is the coagulation power. Or greater the flocculation value, lesser will be the coagulating power. One example I given. When I have taken I will take ferric hydroxide salt. It is a positive salt. Negative ions should be added for coagulation. When I added this electrode KBr, HCl, these added. I have taken negative ion Br minus, Cl minus, NO3 minus, so chromate ion, sulfate ions, dichromate ion. So this is ferricyanide ion. So measure this, see the flocculation value. If you want to bring about the coagulation of ferric hydroxide positive salt, if you put Br minus, 138 millimoles are required. The same we take the ferricyanide 0.09, approximately 0.1 millimoles is sufficient to bring about the coagulation. That means you would say, so lesser the flocculation value, greater is the power of the coagulation, or greater the flocculation value, lesser will be the power of the coagulation. That's why written so the coagulating power is inversely proportional to flocculation value. It's a very, very common question in most of your national level competitive examination. They give the value. You have to say which is a better, the best the coagulating agent, because the negative salts are coagulated by the positive ions. So positive salts are coagulated by the negative ions. Higher the charge, higher is the power of the coagulation. That is expressed in terms of the flocculation value. It's a very, very common question in your national level competitive examinations. Friends, are you clear? I given the clue also. The coagulating power, if you want to express the coagulating power, use inversely proportional to flocculation value. Lesser the flocculation value, more the power for coagulation. Or higher the flocculation value, lesser the power for the coagulation. If you can relate inversely and you can choose the right answer in the examination. Okay? Okay. One more concept, take the protective colloid. Take the protective colloid. One more concept is important for your entrance exam point of view. So protective colloid means, I discussed, the two types of colloids. One is lyophilic colloids and lyophobic colloids. So I told you, so the organic origin, they are all coming under the lyophilic. Inorganic origin, they comes under the lyophobic. So coming to stability, I discussed, lyophilic colloids are more stable than lyophobic. Why lyophilic are more stable? Because lyophilic, they are solvent liking. There is a protective solvent layer. Lyophobic are solvent hating. They don't have a protective solvent layer. They are less stable. So in general, by this time, lyophilic colloids are more stable. Lyophobic are less stable. Are you clear, friends? No, lyophilic colloids are more stable. They are solvent liking. They got a protective solvent. They are more stable. But lyophobic are less stable. My point is, so lyophobic are less stable, I want to make lyophobic also more stable by putting some protective the colloid. So that is called, the lyophilic colloid. So protect the lyophobic colloid, this lyophilic colloid, we call it the protective colloid. You take, this is a lyophobic colloid, what is a lyophobic colloid? So this is less stable, can be easily coagulated. I will put, a small amount of lyophilic colloid, glue or gum, starch, gelatin, lyophilic colloid. So this lyophilic colloid forms a protective layer around the lyophilic colloid particle, and this particle can be prevented from precipitation or protected from precipitation. Thereby, lyophobic also become more stable, and this lyophilic colloid, so protects the lyophobic colloid, is called the protective colloid, and this is called the protective action. Don't confuse by simultaneous using of lyophilic and lyophobic. So lyophilic are more stable, lyophobic are less stable. For all medical applications, we are going to use lyophobic like gold salt, silver salt, platinum salt. We are going to use in medical application. You have to make them more stable. How to make them more stable? By putting some lyophilic colloids. Put some lyophilic colloids like gelatin or glue or gum or gelatin. We can make the lyophobic also more stable. So lyophilic colloid thus added, so that which protects the lyophobic colloid. So that is called the protective colloid, and is called the protective action. How it protects? So this is so imagine is a lyophobic colloid, silver salt or gold salt or platinum salt, mainly used for practical applications, mainly for medical applications. They are less stable. They can be easily coagulated, but you have to protect those colloid. But what you can do, you can put a small amount of lyophilic colloid can be added. So this lyophilic colloid forms a protective layer around the lyophobic colloid and protects the lyophobic colloid. So this lyophilic colloid protects the lyophobic colloid. So this lyophilic colloid, it is called the protective colloid, and this action is called the protective action. You understood? So the protective action. So lyophilic are more stable, lyophobic are less stable. Your purpose is you have to make the lyophobic also more stable. So how we can make? By adding a small amount of lyophilic can be added to lyophobic. So lyophobic also behaves like lyophilic and becomes more stable, and the lyophilic colloid that protects the lyophobic colloid is called the protective action or protective colloid. The number of the lyophilic colloids are available like gelatin or even the egg albumin, glue, gum, arabic, agar agar, which is more protective colloid. How to measure the protective action? The protective action is measured in terms of the gold number. This is one more important concept where you have to apply in the entrance examination with the application of your mind. These are all the direct questions, application questions. If you give the gold number, you can say which is more effective, the protective colloid you have to say. I will define the gold number. Look at it. If I define the gold number, you may not understand. Just I will explain and then I will define. You follow this. Some standards are used to define the gold number. Let's say what I will do is, say I will take a beaker. In this beaker, I will take 10 ml of gold salt is taken. Some standards to measure the protective action. I have taken 10 ml or 10 cc, 10 cm cube of gold salt is taken. Students, okay? I have taken a beaker. 10 ml of gold salt is taken. For this, I will put 1 ml of or 1 cm cube of 1 ml of 10% sodium chloride. Can you see what will happen? My dear students, can you see what happens? I have taken the gold salt. Gold consisting of the positive charged particle. I am putting the 1 cm cube of 10% sodium chloride. What happens? Adding the electrolyte, the salt will be gets coagulated. Is it not? Coagulation of colloids. By adding an electrolyte, the salt can be coagulated. I have taken 10 ml of gold salt I have taken. Say I am putting 1 cm3 of 10% sodium chloride. Actually the coagulation occurs. But my point is the coagulation should not occur. You have to keep the gold salt as stable. To keep to avoid the precipitation. How many milligrams of lyophilic colloid? How many milligrams of lyophilic colloid? Lyophilic colloid that should be added to prevent the coagulation is called the gold number. But I have taken the gold salt. Okay. Look here, gold salt. Let's assume I am going to put 1 ml of 10% sodium chloride. As you know, coagulation occurs. My point is you have to protect from coagulation. To protect from coagulation, how many milligrams of lyophilic colloid that should be added? How many milligrams of lyophilic colloid added? This is called the gold number. The gold number is defined as the number of milligrams of lyophilic colloid that should be added to 10 cm3 of gold salt just to prevent precipitation by adding 1 ml of 10% sodium chloride. Even on adding the 1 ml of 10% sodium chloride, so this gold salt should not be get precipitated. You have to protect it. So to protect how many milligrams of lyophilic colloid that should be added is the gold number. Can you understand now? If I divide, gold number is this is the number of milligrams of lyophilic colloid that should be added to 10 ml of gold salt just to prevent precipitation by adding 1 ml of 10% sodium chloride. I have taken the 10 cm gold salt. I am going to put sodium chloride electrolyte 1 ml 10%. This you have to protect the gold salt. You should not cause coagulation. To prevent coagulation, how many milligrams of lyophilic colloid should be added to this? That you have to experiment, you have to find out. So that how many milligrams of lyophilic colloid, so that is called as the gold number. Look at that, I will give the table gold number, but I will give the example. Number of lyophilic colloids, gelatin, casein milk, egg albumin, gum arabic, sodium oleate, soap it is soluble starch. So this is a gold number, look at this gold number. Gelatin, so this is a milligrams value, not 0.005 to 0.01. This is the gelatin. You take the egg albumin 0.08, gum arabic 0.15, you take starch 25. How do you correlate these values? Application of mind. That is the higher the gold number, lesser will be the protective action. But if you want to protect the gold salt from precipitation, if you put a gelatin, only about 0.01 milligram of gelatin can bring about the coagulation, can make the gold salt stable. If you want to put by starch, you have to put 25 milligrams you have to put. So by this way you can say higher the gold number, lesser will be the protective action, or lesser the gold number, so more greater will be the protective action. It's a very, very common question. I don't know, many students are still doing wrong in the examination. That was that if you are good in the concept, will not do wrong. That's I told here, the protective action is inversely proportional to gold number already. So two action is inversely proportional to gold number. Lesser the gold number, more the protective action. More the gold number, less the protective action. Any two, so lyophilic colloids will be given, their gold number will be given. You have to say which is the best protective colloid. Based on the value, say lesser the value, because inversely proportional. Lesser the gold number, more is the protective action. Or more the gold number, lesser will be the protective action. That's why the lyophilic are more stable, lyophobic are less stable. By practical applications, you have to make lyophobic also more stable by adding the lyophilic colloid. Then how many milligrams of lyophilic colloid should be added to make it more stable? That is expressed in terms of the gold number. As per the gold number value, again I define the gold number. This is the number of milligrams of lyophilic colloid that should be added to 10 ml of gold salt just to prevent precipitation, just to make it stable. By adding 1 ml of 10% sodium chloride is called the gold number. But gold protective action is inversely proportional to gold number. Lesser the gold number. No, gelatin is a more protective, more efficient protective action shown by the gelatin. Least is starch, 25 milligrams are required. So this is the protective action is measured in terms of the gold number. They are all very important. You have to please go through, study once again, take many examples, solve and make familiar of all these concepts. Now lastly, I will come to the applications of colors. I told you, so this is the basic science. We do a lot of research. and we propose a theory and concept for all, for the mankind, for the benefit of mankind. I will explain what are the important applications of these, the colloids. So this first, the application is smoke precipitation. You understand, it's called the Cottrell smoke precipitator. So this is called the smoke precipitation means, as you know, so industries are inevitable for this modern civilization, because lot of population in India, 135, so the billions of the peoples are there in India, and we have to supply the essential things to the human being. Means industries are inevitable. When the industry is inevitable in industry, they use fuel. So you go to any industry, large amount of smoke is produced in industry. What industry will do? There is a big chimney in the industry. So the smoke will be discharged into the atmosphere. It's a common observation. Even you can see a number of rice mills in Davanagere. They are discharging a large amount of smoke into the upper atmosphere. So a chimney they discharge. If you come to the colloidal principle, what is a smoke? Smoke is a aerosol. What is the dispersive phase? What is the dispersion medium? In the smoke, carbon particles were dispersed in air. So colloidal particles means, they will show the Brownian movement, they show the optical property, they show the electrical property, they got a charges, they don't settle at the bottom, they move continuously, they dispersed in the air, they don't settle at the bottom. Carbon particles which are colloidal in nature in the smoke, they don't settle at the bottom, they dispersed in air. If you inhale, what happens? They go to your lungs. Once they enter the lungs, what happens? They cough, asthma, all because of the environmental pollution. Then what is the remedy for this? So the science has given a technology called the smoke precipitation. In the smoke precipitation, this is the chimney of an industrial unit. This is fed with the metal electrodes, and smoke is passed into the chimney. The smoke comes from the industry, passed into the chimney. The smoke consisting of the particles, carbon particles, charged particles, they move towards the opposite electrodes, they lose their charges, they get precipitated and they settle down. All the carbon particles will settle down. Only the smoke free from carbon particles can be discharged into the upper atmosphere, thereby air pollution can be minimized. Look at the technology. Large amount of industry, large amount of smoke. You see at Ariera, large amount of smoke is discharged through big chimneys. So chimney, the smoke is a aerosol. Carbon particles, they are in colloidal state, they are charged particles, they don't settle at the bottom, they are all dispersed in the air. They cause us lot of respiratory diseases. How to remove these particles? By the Cottrell precipitator, the principle of electrophoresis. Smoke is passed into the chimney where electrical potential difference is maintained. So even the dust particles or carbon particles, so even arsenic, any of the particles which are in colloidal nature, they move towards the opposite electrodes. They lose their charges. Because if the charges are removed, they become unstable and gets coagulated. So crosses the charge of the colloidal particle, they become heavy and settle at the bottom. All the carbon particles settle down. Only the smoke free from carbon particles are discharged into the upper atmosphere, thereby air pollution can be minimized. That is one of the industrial application of the principle of colloids in the smoke precipitation. So this precipitator is called the Cottrell smoke precipitator. One application. But purification of drinking water in municipalities or corporation, So this the purification is done before supplying to the domestic purposes. They send for a sedimentation. You have seen the rainwater, muddy water, they contain the mud consisting of the mud particles which are colloidal in nature. They don't settle at the bottom. So to make the water clear, you can't send muddy water to the domestic application. They purify, they convert a clear water, transparent water, then be supplied for the domestic application. So that done in the sedimentation, they put alum. Alum is a double salt of potassium sulfate, aluminum sulfate with 24 molecules of water of hydration, potassium. This potassium gives K, aluminum ions, potassium ions and sulfate ions. So these ions neutralizes the charges on the colloidal impurities. So the mud particles will get coagulated, quickly settle down. Then go for filtration to remove the mud particles and use in the purification of water. These are very simple experiment even you can do at your house. You take a cup of water in a glass, muddy water, you put a small piece of alum. Within a minute, all the particles will settle down and water will become clear. Why? Because this alum contains these ions. So these ions neutralizes the charges on the mud particles. Mud particles are colloidal, they don't settle, but even keep 24 hours, they don't settle. Muddy water will remain as it is for a longer period of time because they overcome the force of gravity. They don't just settle at the bottom. Simply they are moving here like Brownian movement. So by removing the charges, they can be coagulated, settle down in the sedimentation tank. Then the water goes for filtration and then sterilization and then supplied for the domestic application. In the purification of water, the principle of colloids is employed in the purification of water. Now it's called the delta formation. Now this is called delta. Delta is, those who are studying mathematics, delta. You can see the shape of delta. Delta, what is the delta formation? See those, I can give one practically, those who are going to Goa. You can, before reaching a Goa, you can see the river joining the sea. At the junction of river joining the sea, you can see there is assume this is a river, not joining the sea. At the junction, there is a thick stone formation in the shape of delta. Not exactly delta, it's a shape of delta. So this is called the delta formation. So when the river, so whatever the water used when it goes to the sea, river water and the sea water at the junction. So there is a formation, hard stone formation in the form of delta. It's called delta formation. How it has been formed? Look at this. River water contains colloidal impurities. It carries all the particles on their way. So animal etc., human etc., dead particles, plants, animals, everything it carries river water for a long distance. They are all colloidal particles. But sea water contains sodium chloride, Na plus and Cl minus ion. So this salt of the sea neutralizes the colloidal impurity. Coagulation occurs. They settle in the form of a rock. So this is called the delta formation. The principle of delta formation at the junction of river and sea is mainly because of the principles of the colloids. Sea water contains rich in sodium chloride ions. Electrolyte is added to the sea water. Sea water rich in colloidal particles. They neutralizes its charges. So the coagulation takes place. So the coagulated matter accumulates in the form of a hard rock in the shape of delta. It is called the delta formation. You can apply how delta has been formed, apply the principle of colloids. Then foodstuffs, So many of the foodstuffs you're eating like, the butter, ice cream, fruit jellies, bread, they are all, the colloidal in nature. Many foods we prepare at house is the colloidal form. The particle size will be about 10 power minus 6 to minus 9 meter. Most of the food we consume is in colloidal nature. And most of the medicines we use, in the colloidal in nature. Most of the medicines, because why the medicines, they are most effective means the colloidal particles are charged particle. Our body is composed of charge, all number of enzymes are charged particle. So if you consume the medicine in the form of charges, is easily attracted by the opposite charge. So therefore easy assimilation absorption takes place. That's most of the drugs are made in the form of the emulsion or in the form of the colloidal suspension. I'll give the examples of some of the important medicines. The colloidal antimony used for cure Kala Ajar. Milk of magnesia for gastritis, colloidal gold for intramuscular injection. So colloidal argyrol is used for the eye lotion. Ferric hydroxide, any arsenic poison, including the snake bite, they give ferric hydroxide. Even Dettol, Lysol you are using, germicide, they are colloidal in nature. But cod liver oil, skim ointments are emulsion, even the antibodies like penicillin, streptomycin, they are all in the colloidal form. Most of the pharmaceutical preparation, they are in the colloidal form. They are easily absorbed and assimilated in the body. For sewage disposal, one of the very burning problem in the present day civilization. So this sewage disposal is not a big problem in small cities like Davangere. You go to big cities like Bangalore, Kolkata, Bombay. So those are going to Bangalore to Mysore near Kengeri. You can see how the sewage water is flowing in the Kengeri. So sewage water is flowing in a big Tungabhadra river. Lots of domestic wastewater. So domestic wastewater is called the sewage. So this is not fit for the use. That sewage can be purified by the principle of electrophoresis. So what they do, the sewage, they are going to apply charged plates, and the sewage is passed to the charged plates. So all the colloidal particles are moved towards opposite electrodes and gets coagulated, settle down. So that coagulated matter used as a fertilizer for agriculture. And water will be recycled for agriculture, even further purified and recycled for the drinking purpose. So that is the sewage disposal. Big cities, so the domestic wastewater or industrial wastewater disposal is a big problem. So to remove those, the colloidal particles, that particle which are not settled down, they can be remove the charges by electrophoresis. Then they settle down, and settled down matter can be used as a fertilizer for agriculture, and water can be recycled for various purposes. Sewage disposal. Artificial rain. Nowadays, technology is so much high. We cannot wait for the rain to come. If I am a farmer, if I want to get rain, I can get the rain today. This was very much experimented when S.M. Krishna was the Chief Minister of Karnataka, when the Karnataka is facing acute drought situation. What they do in the artificial rain? So, sea water evaporates, imagine. So, what is, this is this is nothing but your liquid aerosols. Liquid means small droplets of water, curdle form, they dispersed in air. Liquid dispersed in liquid aerosols. Liquid dispersed, you go to upper atmosphere, large amount of liquid air droplets are dispersed in the air. What we do in the artificial rain, in the aeroplane, we carry salt, sodium chloride, and electrified sand thrown on the upper atmosphere. So these the curdle particles, they are the liquid aerosols. They are spreading all over. They will get coagulated and they form a big clouds. Then automatically the rain will come. So this artificial rain is also caused by the principle of the colloids. Because in the upper atmosphere, large amount of liquid aerosols are present. You have to make them to a cloud. How? By neutralizing the charges. You put sodium chloride and sand, and also they have to put small amount of iodine as a depression, the freezing point. So then the coagulation occurs. So all small liquid aerosols combine to form a big cloud, and automatically because of the putting iodine also to depress the freezing point, and finally so the cloud melts and we are getting the artificial rain. Is the principle of the colloids. Now the cleaning action of soap, this already explained. An oil stain is there when you are applying a soap on it, how it leaves the surface by the micelle formation. That I already discussed the cleaning action of soap due to the micelle formation. I told you blue color of the sky is also explained because the environment contains a lot of dust particle or carbon particle which are colorless in nature. Light will scatter the colored particle has got the property of scattering the light rays. The scattering light has got the wavelength of blue light in the visible region. That's why the sky appears blue. Rubber plating. Nowadays you take any automobile parts, they give a beautiful decorative coating on the automobile parts. Because rubber is a negative salt. Article they make positive. The positive uniformly accumulates on the metallic automobiles. Thereby the corrosion can be prevented. There are some of the various applications of the colloids. So colloidal principle can be applied for various applications both in industry and also for the mankind. Okay, very briefly, another 5 minutes I will conclude. I will give you a very brief because this is not coverage under your NCERT, only for national level competitive point of view. But the emulsion I told you, emulsion is already given liquid in liquid. Liquid dispersed in liquid is called the emulsion. Best example I have given the milk. Liquid in liquid means they are two immiscible. Liquid in liquid means they are heterogeneous system. They are not miscible. Suppose you take water, you put oil, you shake it forms an emulsion. They mix us together. You keep it for 1 minute, they will get separated. But for all practical applications, you have to make the emulsion more stable. Suppose you take the example of milk. Milk is an emulsion. Milk why is stable? You can put any amount of water to the milk, will not get separated. Why? Because there is a stabilizer. So to keep the emulsion, you have to put the stabilizer. The casein is present in the milk. That prevents the separation of liquid fat particles and the water. Therefore, the milk is always stable. Similarly, if you want to keep all the emulsions or most of the medical preparations, pharmaceutical preparation, and you have to keep the emulsion stable. That's why by adding a stabilizer, so you can keep the emulsion stable because we are mixing the two layer. So mixing the two liquids, they are all immiscible. They mix us and get separated. So they should not get separated. You have to put the emulsifier. That emulsifier reduces the interfacial tension between the two immiscible liquids, and thereby separation can be prevented. Here the emulsion means there are two types of emulsion: oil in water, water in oil. Oil in water means oil is a dispersed phase and water is a dispersion medium. Water in oil type is water is a dispersed phase, oil is a dispersion medium. But oil in water, you can take the milk is an example. Milk is an emulsion of liquid, and even the varnishes, cream, wood polish, they are all oil in water. But the water in oil, cod liver oil, butter, cold cream are the example for the water in oil type of emulsion. Look at the diagram, see. So this is the oil in water means oil is a dispersed phase and water is a dispersion medium. So this emulsion, they get separated. If you don't put the emulsifier, they coalesce, they join, the two layers will get separated. But water in oil, water is a dispersed phase and oil is the dispersion medium. So both these should be stabilized by putting a suitable stabilizer. If you don't put the emulsifier, so this emulsifier protective layer and thereby they will not allow them to coalesce. That's why they can be made stable. So without keeping a stabilizer, we cannot keep the emulsion stable. So what are the stabilizers? Emulsifiers are employed. I'll give the example only. Emulsifying agent for oil in water. So agents used are proteins, gums, natural or synthetic soaps mainly. Synthetic soaps are used as an emulsifier in the oil and water type of emulsion. So in the water and oil type emulsifying agents are heavy metal salts of fatty acid only. Heavy metal salts, heavy metal like cadmium, heavy metal salts. So of fatty acids, long chain alcohols, and lamp black. Lamp black is a good emulsifier for the. So this is for this is the water in the oil type of emulsion. Do you know what is a lamp black? ಲ್ಯಾಂಪ್ ಬ್ಲ್ಯಾಕ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದರೆ ನೀವು ದೀಪ ಉರಿತೈತೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಬತ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ದೀಪ ಕಟ್ಟಗೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಬತ್ತಿಲಿ ಕರ್ರಗೆ ಬರ್ತೈತೆ ಅದು, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಲ್ಯಾಂಪ್ ಬ್ಲ್ಯಾಕ್. So this is a very good emulsifier for the water and oil type of the emulsion. So the example, so because these all questions have appeared in your entrance examination, that's why I give the classification emulsifier, what emulsifier for employed in oil water emulsion and the water in the oil type of the emulsion. Look at this like this. So this is the these the emulsifier makes a protective layer and prevents the coalescence of this particle, and thereby emulsion can be kept stable. Now de-emulsification. If you want to remove this emulsification, even after adding the emulsifier, we can separate the liquids by these methods. One is by heating or by freezing or by centrifugation. You carry out the centrifugation, thereby emulsion can be broken down, and you can, that's called the de-emulsification. For sometimes we do emulsion and we break the emulsion. If you want to break the emulsion, you can use some of the process like heating or freezing or centrifugation can be employed for the separation of the emulsions. That is called the de-emulsification. This is not for your the board examination. This data will be given to you in the printed form. You can refer on later also. Now gels, I told you, gel, as well as I give an example, liquid dispersed in solid. Gel is a liquid dispersed in solid, is called the gel. So this is the gels means mainly they are the lyophilic colloids. So these the lyophilic colloids when heated sits into a semi-solid, is called the gel, or that process is called the gelation. So the lyophilic colloids, so the lyophilic colloids under some condition they sets into a semi-solid, and that semi-solid is called the gel, and this process is called the gelation. So example gels are gum, arabic, silicic acid, processed cheese. That is the example for gels. So this is the colloid. So this is the gel. But the colloid is dispersion phase, dispersion medium. So they are heterogeneous system. They don't settle at the bottom. They show all the property, optical property, kinetic property, electrical property. So if you take the gels, when cooled, they sets into a semi-solid. So in this, the lyophilic colloids on cooling sets into a semi-solid, and this semi-solid is called the gel, and this process is called the gelation. So gels means there are two types of gels. One is called the elastic gels and non-elastic gels. Elastic gels means they got the property of elasticity. We can stretch it within the limits. If you release again, they come to the original position. They are called the elastic gels, and these elastic gels are the example for gelatin, agar, starch are the example for elastic gels. So this elastic gels has got the few important properties. I will tell you briefly, because this has been appeared in your entrance examination. That's why I made note of this. So this elastic gel show the property of syneresis, thixotropy, imbibition. So the syneresis means when the gel when exposed to air loses the water, is called a weeping, and shrinkage occurs. That is called the syneresis. Is that weeping? So gel has got more liquid exposed to air, it loses water, and the shrinkage occurs. That is called the syneresis. Thixotropy means you take a gel, you shake it, it becomes a sol. Again sol, you cool it, form a gel. Now gel to sol transformation is reversible, is called the thixotropy. Imbibition means when this gels, the elastic gels are placed in water, they absorbs water and swelling takes place. So this is called the imbibition. So these elastic gels, when put it in water, it absorbs water and swelling occurs. This is called the imbibition. Now this is the syneresis, thixotropy, imbibition are the properties shown by the elastic gel. So non-elastic gel is only an example for silica gel. Is a non-elastic. It don't have any elastic property, and that does not show all the properties. Synergesis, thixotropy or imbibition property cannot be shown with non-elastic. A simple example is the silica gel that is prepared by chemical method. Silica gel is prepared by heating waxapyr and hydrochloric acid and sodium silicate. Sodium silicate heated with hydrochloric acid, silica gel is formed, is a non-elastic and mainly used to control the humidity, is a good absorption property of the moisture, and they do not show any property for synergesis. When exposed to air, losing water, shrinkage, and synergesis. Thixotropy, gel to salt formation, reversible thixotropy. When put it in water, it absorbs water, swelling occurs, is called imbibition. So these properties are not shown by the non-elastic gel. So with this, I am going to complete the entire surface chemistry. I have covered elaborately adsorption, catalysis and colloidal state. Anyway, we are going to send the assignment to you. Please, even the one copy of this my presentation will be posted to you. You please refer and get ready to submit your assignment in these three subjects: surface chemistry, which includes adsorption, catalysis and the colloids. Please go through once again. Any doubts you can call me. Okay, finally I will thank you for your patient hearing.